Okay, so the cultural group that I decided to do my culture paper on was Spain, or more specifically, Castilla-La Mancha, which is the southern eastern part of Madrid, which is the capital of Spain. The dance that I chose to focus on from this area, and I'm pretty sure, I mean, the sources weren't completely clear on where it originated because it's not super clear. But the bolero dance is what is more culturally significant here. And the bolero dance is a fusion of classical ballet and a folk dance, and then also a ballroom type couple dance. So the folk dance is called the Celeviantes, and the ballroom dance is Contra Danzas, and they wanted, like, the function of the dance, basically the reason why it's fused together with classical ballet is so that the dance can be performed on the stage instead of just at fiestas, which were very popular in Spain at the time. The bolero dance became popular and was basically formed in the 18th century, and at this time what was very popular was just all of the different dances from each town, because dance wasn't really taught in schools, like the popular ones weren't taught in schools, and so there were different variations on popular dances, and also each town had their own dance. And so for this area, the Castilla-La Mancha area of Spain basically dealt with the bolero, and they were kind of the first area to start Escuela Bolero, which is the school of the bolero dance. And basically that's the whole history of that dance. So the function of it was just basically so that it can be performed on the stage and not just at the parties, which was custom at the time. And the reason why they wanted to perform it more on the stage and stuff was because as it got later into the 18th century and then the 19th century, ballet became more popular as it spread throughout Europe, and there were Italian like ballet companies and stuff that would go through and perform in Spain, and so they wanted to kind of integrate that into their dance, because that was basically like the whole culture, like the whole Spanish culture. They like integrating new things into their dance because they love music and new ways to like basically feel it and be near it. And so they realized there was a way to do that with integrating the classical ballet that was introduced by the Italians. And also there was a little bit of like the French ballet styles that were also introduced, like the French classical ballet anyway. And so basically how this reflects the Spanish culture, and especially this specific area of Spain, is that it shows their like deep connection with like their history and stuff, because it shows all, because it combined two of their popular folk and kind of their ballroom couple dance that's kind of similar to the tango, and the flamenco. That also was another dance. And so basically it just shows their deep roots and also their romantic side with dance and music and how it intermingles with each other. They, Spain is a very romantic kind of country. Spanish is one of the romantic languages, and so it just kind of shows their romance between music and dance and showing like emotions through it. Okay, so basically what I realized about most of the dances from Spain, especially this area, is that they're very romantic dances. Usually there's no space in between and the body movements are adaptable, just to show the romance, romance between the two partners, because the Spanish culture is very romanticized and showing love. That's basically why they're using this dance, it's an expression of relationships basically. And so my close movement analysis of the bolero dance, the body parts used / held are so arms, the back of the neck, spine, and torso. The body part phrasing is sequential. Sorry, I have to read some of these because it's a lot. The postural characteristics is, so the stance is narrow, the legs are adaptable, and the torso is a single unit. It's basically kind of stick-like, much like how it is in ballet. Their torsos really don't move that much. It's all about leg movement and arm movement as they dance with their partner. And the torso shape is neutral. Energy qualities, it's very lightweight, and it's direct space. It is bound and it's sustained time. So it's a 1, 3, 4. So it's very slow and then a little bit quicker, but it's that same tempo throughout the whole entire dance. It doesn't change at all. It's very focused and articulate, but it's also kind of a dreamlike dance because it's very romantic, and so it's very articulate movements, but it's romanticized. And the shape qualities is retreating, rising, and spreading, much like the waves in the ocean, I feel like, as they pull apart from each other and come back together. The still forms is pin and spiral, and the time is very repetitive, and it's slower compared to most Spanish dances. The space, so movement in space is very dimensional, and they usually face each other. There are times where the one partner spins the other out towards the audience. And the formation is circle and clump, and the level is medium. Okay, so this is my A phrase movement. Okay, and this is my D phrase movement. Okay, so in my D phrase, I decided to incorporate the time flow and also basically just the tempo that the bolero dance uses, and basically I kind of slowed down my movements and made it more articulate and focused, and also made sure to put some emphasis in the feeling of it, much like how a lot of the different Spanish dances do, but specifically the bolero dance does, with its slow tempo, but its basically emphasis on feeling the movements and stuff. So that's what I incorporated in my D phrase. Okay, so the cultural group dance that I chose to do research on, the bolero dance from Spain, fulfills the social dance form the most, I feel like. There is kind of a little intermixing of folk form in there as well. There's a little bit of folk characteristics, such as spatial patterns are organized. There's stylistic variations in movements, and there's also variations depending on where the dance is. So there's different variations of the dance depending on which town you're in, and so on and so forth. And so the characteristics that it has for the social dance form is that it enhances control of interpersonal behavior. There's bodies of the two dancers are always facing each other, and there's also a special interest in like touching versus no touching, and also usually there's close, like their bodies are usually closer when they're transitioning between movements, just to kind of show that romantic side of how most Spanish dances are. And it's kind of interesting thinking about how much it is a social dance. I didn't even think about it until really like doing this question, because I don't know, I kind of thought it would be a little bit more of a mix of the folk and the kind of classical ballet side of things, but it really is more of a social dance, which I guess thinking about it now, I'm like, oh well, duh, it's kind of like, you know, the flamingo and the tango and the waltz and stuff, but it's also has like its own kind of mix of things, which is really interesting with the dances that were from this time period of the 18th century, because there were so many different variations of so many different dances that became popular during that time, that a lot of them were social dances and stuff, but there were also quite a few folk dances that merged with other folk dances and just became their own things. So I thought it was really cool. So the function of personal dance forms is that it's basically an individual expressing ideas, beliefs, and feelings through dance. The characteristics of it is that there's deliberate movements, like each gesture, posture, facial expression has a meaning that the dancer themselves knows, and it's also a way of painting a picture in some instances of like a story of their life, or story of like how things make them feel or whatever. And it's also, the dance itself is all about the dancer. It's very individual and personal. That's why it's called personal dance form. And the individual expression is so important that it needs to be performed. It's kind of like a bubble that builds up and needs to pop and stuff. And it's also an individual congruence with self. It's basically just realizing all the different qualities of self as an individual. And I do experience some forms of personal dance forms in my life. I guess some examples would be like, you know, when I'm feeling really good and like start dancing to some really good music or something. That's kind of an expressing of happiness, so an expression of feeling through dance. And I'd like to incorporate it more in my life, just by, I don't know, dancing whenever I feel like it, I guess. And also maybe incorporating it into maybe other projects that I do for school, or, just having fun with friends or my siblings, since we love dancing all together and stuff. So, yeah.